In horror, you're tapping into something that is universally relatable, our inherent fear of death. I love the storytelling aspect that European cinema has. The material comes from a place of passion. I wanted to build things that would scare the crap out of people. Now, I was one of the people that saw the first issue, and I flipped through and I was like, oh, the zombies look great. The Walking Dead. It's like a zombie comic book. Who the hell ever heard of that? I'm constantly trying to reinvent the look of zombies. 99% of the zombie work on The Walking Dead is practical makeup effects. The special effects and the makeup effects have to push the story together. You know, I've had people walk up to me on the street and go, man, you just scared the hell out of me. I'm like, really? Yes. I just really encourage so many young people that I've met to follow their dreams. Give people glimpses of what it is that you absolutely love.
They say that the human race is doomed, that we have lost touch with our true nature, that the media has corrupted us, and that the planet has no future. I disagree. I believe that humanity is full of hope, and that our salvation lies within each one of us. My name is Brian Rose, and my job is to listen, the oldest method of learning known to man. Each week I seek out individuals that are changing the world, people who are living and thinking in a different way. Their stories will challenge your beliefs, make you question your choices, and perhaps inspire you to change. I never planned on doing any of this, but now I can't stop. Join me on this mission and make humanity something we can all be proud of.
It's time for you to man up, to once and for all tell your mind who the fuck is boss. I need a fucking answer. What's it gonna be? I don't know what it is about this fucking sport, but it attracts people that really need to do deep work on themselves.
I failed in this city. All these bad memories. I never really felt like I gave a fuck about me or my life. I almost killed myself,
Think about something that is going to drive you when it really hurts. Some kind of demon you want to fight.
This is not Pussy Man, this is Iron Man. Under pressure reveals true character. What are you gonna do? You gonna be in Chattanooga May 20th or what?
No, really. What is it like to make zombies for a living? Well, that's what Greg Nicotero does, and he's been doing it for 25 years. He's the chief makeup and special effects designer for The Walking Dead. We had an amazing conversation about why we like to be scared as humans, why we pay for horror, and how he keeps it fresh on the set of this incredible series. I know you're going to enjoy my time with Greg. He's a really warm-hearted individual and lots of fun. And we also have a ton of fun inside London Real Academy, where we transform people's lives over 6 or 8 weeks of our intense online accountability courses. If you want to learn about business, about your life, about speaking to inspire, or how to broadcast yourself, go inside and check us out.
London Real doesn't stop when the conversation ends. You see, that's when we get started. Because everything begins with a thought, and then comes the action. The London Real Academy is our global transformation platform. Here we bring together thousands of students from over 75 countries. Whether you want to build a profitable business from your passion, or learn to speak to inspire, or broadcast yourself with your very own podcast, or accelerate your life to become a high-performance person, we have the online accountability course and personal mentoring program that will make your dream a reality. Join us, and we'll take your life to the next level together. Our next accelerator course is starting soon.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Greg Nicotero, the special makeup effects creator, television director, and producer. For the last 8 years, you've served as the producing director and FX designer on the hit television series, The Walking Dead. Your career in the film industry spans 35 years with your first work in special effects makeup on George Romero's 1985 film, Day of the Dead. After that, you formed your own special makeup effects studio, which has worked for over 400 film and television projects and won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards. You've collaborated with directors such as Steven Spielberg and Quentin Tarantino, and your credits include movies Pulp Fiction, Boogie Nights, Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, Sin City, and Breaking Bad. Greg, welcome to London Real.
Thanks.
You're chuckling a bit.
Wow, it's just, when you hear it that way, I'm intimidated. Thanks. It's been amazing. It's I love what I do. I'm fortunate.
What's it like when you come to London, and when you think about film and television from like a British perspective, like what comes to your mind?
Well, I've always been, I want to be transported when I watch a film. My parents were massive movie buffs, still are massive movie buffs. So they took me to the theater, like when 2001 came out 50 years ago. When Planet of the Apes and The Exorcist, all these movies in the late 60s, early 70s, those seminal films, all the James Bond movies, my parents embraced that. We went to the theater as a whole family. So I always felt that I sort of adopted this sort of big picture storytelling scenario. And we've been talking about 2001 a lot lately because it's the 50th anniversary, and I just rewatched the movie lately, and I love the storytelling aspect that European cinema has. I love that they think outside of the box. They're not writing material for an audience, and I think that's really what's very different and very important, is that the material that they produce, that they direct, that they develop, comes from a place of passion. The filmmakers are super passionate about it. And I tend to gravitate towards that kind of stuff. So I've had a great opportunity to work with some amazing folks in my career. Guys that I admired growing up. John Carpenter, and it was all genre stuff. Is where I really kind of got my interest in George Romero and John Landis and Wes Craven, and a lot of these kind of ground-making filmmakers that put movies out there that were at that point taboo. Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left, movies that put material or subject matter or effects in front of you for the first time, where you were seeing particularly gory effects, or you were watching movies that had these vague, nebulous endings and left it for you to think about and for you to ponder what this meant. The one thing that I can really say is after the years that I've been doing it, I still learn something new every single day as a producer, as a director. And I still love it. It's still exciting to go on a movie set and see these technicians and these people collectively building these visuals and watching actors. It really is, to me, the most freeing art form.
You said ultimately it's about passion. Is it about trying to bottle that passion and transport it onto the screen so you can then download it into someone's brain?
I don't know if you can bottle it. I think what you do is you give people glimpses of what it is that you absolutely love. You know, we'll talk about Guillermo del Toro. You know, I mean, not a lot of people know that he started as a makeup effects guy. So you can tell now, knowing that in my head, you watch his movies and you can see that he embraces the fantastic, and he takes people on these journeys. And you know, I love that The Shape of Water is a fairy tale. You know, nobody really. You don't think about it when you hear the log line about it. You're not going to think about what genre it could potentially land in. But for me, it opens with that beautiful underwater shot, and you know that it's a fairy tale and it's a fable, and you're getting a glimpse into his interpretation of that world, just like The Devil's Backbone and just like Pan's Labyrinth, other movies that are his that are fables. And it's that passion to tell that story and to download that material. I think it just comes out of those filmmakers. You know, I mean, knowing Guillermo as well as I do, and I've known him for a long time, he's always wanted to do his version of Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, I had dinner with him and George Romero probably in 1995 or 1996, and he was talking about wanting to do his take on Creature from the Black Lagoon. And you know, when you listen to his acceptance speeches, he talks about the love of monsters, and he talks about the idea that there is this potential dark side around everyone, and he embraces it and he buries himself in it in a unique way. And I think a lot of filmmakers, Martin McDonagh and people that have a passion for telling these heartfelt stories, that it comes out on the screen.
I remember hearing Bret Easton Ellis say that film is a director's medium, television is more of a writer's medium. And he said in a film, you know, the director can really bring you into this weird, strange world by all the choices they make. Mm-hmm. Whereas with television, it's harder to do that. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, television is a producer-writer medium because in many instances, you're a director for hire. You know, you're brought in to direct one chapter of an ongoing story. So in many instances, you're facilitating one particular chapter. So you are somewhat limited in coming in and landing and wanting to redefine either the look of the show or the story because it's already a slot in the puzzle. You know what I mean? On The Walking Dead, because I'm a producing director, I've directed 25 episodes of the show so far. I have a different scenario because I'm involved in the overall storytelling arc as well as coming in and directing, you know, some of the bigger episodes, the season premieres and the season finales. So I think and everyone keeps saying, when are you going to direct a movie? What are you waiting for? I'm like, well, I'm a little busy on this show that's been a juggernaut for 8 years, coming on 9. And I'm still really invested in that show. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see what we can bring to it season after season. And so, yeah, in regards to that, I think television definitely is not a director's medium, but you now have a lot of directors that are moving into television and developing their own stuff so that they can be involved in something that's more than just a short form piece. You know, again, referencing Walking Dead, if we would have had to tell that story in 2 hours, you would have never been able to learn who these characters were and care about them as much. But we're now 116 hours roughly into this story. So from a storytelling standpoint, it's a dream. You can continue to refine these characters and resolve them and have some die and have some new ones come in. It evolves. It's an organic entity that you're not married to. Here's our 90-minute window or our 120-minute window. And I think that's one of the reasons, you know, a lot of people talk about, oh, we're in the golden age of television right now. Well, you know, with shows like Breaking Bad, they have been able to redefine television. And, I'm kind of obsessed with a lot of stuff. I mean, I love Black Mirror. Can't get enough. Really, just can't get enough of that show. But Homeland, and there's some great stuff out there, and the fact that you can check in with these people week after week instead of it just being a movie, I just think really allows for a different kind of viewing experience. And now, of course, people can either watch them on the network or wait a week and download it or binge watch stuff when material goes to Netflix or some streaming services. So even watching television has changed in the last 8 years since we started Walking Dead. It's now changed because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to wait till it's all done and then I'm going to watch it all together, like Game of Thrones. I have people saying, I'm just going to wait. Why would you wait? It's so good. You're missing out. You're missing out on some fun.
What's a kid from Pittsburgh doing in the movie business? Because
Oh,
you
good
weren't
Lord.
supposed to do this, were you?
No, I was supposed to be a doctor. My dad's a kidney specialist. And when I was very young, they said, listen, you're going to be the doctor of the family, so you're going to take over my practice. And I was like, okay, sure, makes sense. But, I would stay up late on Saturday nights and watch a television show called Chiller Theater. And it was a local television host, and he would show monster movies every Saturday night. And my younger brother, Brian, and I would stay up, and we would watch horror movies on Saturday nights. And I had a sketch pad with me, so I was drawing all the time. And that was really kind of, my parents got me hooked going to the movies, but then being able to, and I'll never forget, in July was Classic Horror Month, so they would show Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula, all the classics. So it became a fascination of mine, and more specifically how they do that aspect of how do you turn a guy into a werewolf? How do you make Creature from Black Lagoon? How do you make these things?
Okay, so you were getting lost in the movie, but you were also analyzing it.
Well, I think it was one of my ways of rationalizing the fact that I was terrified.
Right.
If you're afraid of a monster, what's the best thing to do? You deconstruct it so it's not scary anymore. Oh, it's just a guy with makeup. Oh, it's just a guy with fangs. Oh, it's a guy with bolts, whatever. I became fascinated with that aspect of it, and lo and behold, in only the way the universe can provide, it turns out that George Romero, who directed Night of the Living Dead, lived probably 40 minutes from where I grew up. And I realized at that time that his special effects makeup artist named Tom Savini, who ultimately would become my boss, their mission was you don't have to live in New York or Hollywood to make movies. With the advent of independent cinema and the success that it brought with, like I was saying earlier, Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left, and even a little bit later, Friday the 13th. There were guys who could raise money from investors that were investing in a shopping mall and make a little movie. And a lot of times those little movies became massive blockbuster hits. Dawn of the Dead was made for $1 million and grossed $80 million. I don't think anybody really thought, we're going to make a blockbuster. I think they wanted to just tell their little independent horror movie stories. And I was fortunate enough to become friends with George Romero and then his special effects artist, Tom Savini. So it was really just this kind of weird, like, things lined up. And even after my first job offer, they were getting ready to do a movie called Creepshow. And George had offered me a job and said, hey, you want to come work on Creepshow? First of all, why is he offering me? I don't know anything about the movie business. I don't know anything about anything. But back then, it's like, well, you start as a production assistant, and you work at the production office, and you stand on set, and you yell action and cut, and you usher the actors to and from their trailers.
He just liked you. He liked you.
Well, I think he saw something in me, and a lot of these filmmakers, they all kind of work the same way. They have a family of people around them that they like and they trust and they admire. And I found myself as part of that family.
Tell me about the horror genre. You were almost a doctor. Mm-hmm. What's going on in the brain? We got like the amygdala back here and then the frontal cortex. And is horror confusing the two? And is it going back and forth?
No. I'll tell you, I think initially, it's two things. Number one, it's our inherent fear of death. and our way of rationalizing it. And there's a couple things. It's like going on a roller coaster. It's thrilling and terrifying, but then when you get off the roller coaster, there's that endorphin rush and that adrenaline rush that makes you feel alive. Okay. And I always felt that horror movies, when you have that immediate scare where your heart starts beating and everything is going haywire, the idea that you're sitting in a movie theater and you're safe has a very unique cathartic effect on the brain, in my opinion. I think also part of it is like the biggest unknown in the universe is what happens after we die. What happens at the moment that we die? That no one can ever answer that question, no matter how hard they try. So the idea of even something as simple as seeing how one person dies in a movie, your brain's like, okay, well, that was a painless death, or that was, oh, hopefully I won't go that horribly, or, you know, there's so many different aspects to it. So the idea that we can be thrilled and elated almost simultaneously in horror, I think, is one of the things that excited me. I remember sitting in the movie theater and you get that hot flash, that hot wave that runs over your body when you see something that scares you. And being able to be, for me personally, a part of that, being able to be one of those people that designs those moments and is responsible for those moments of someone else. You know, I've had people walk up to me on the street and go, man, you just scared the hell out of me, that particular thing. I'm like, really? Yes. So I really think that's what the fascination with horror is, and genre material, because it really takes you to a different place, and it's oddly celebrated. Like, they have conventions that people, or you can, what I was doing in the car on the way over here, I was looking up on my phone the filming locations for American Werewolf in London, because I was like, oh, I wonder what tube station they use for that great shot of the werewolf stalking, you know, you see that. I mean, people go to actual filming locations, you know, where they shot Jaws, where they shot The Exorcist, where they'll go and they'll stand there. It somehow grounds them and makes them a part of that experience. That that doesn't happen with Westerns. It doesn't happen with musicals. There's something about horror movies that draws people to that material, that appeals to this sometimes forbidden, darker side of them. And it allows them to maybe exorcise some demons, or it maybe allows them to come to grips with their own mortality, you know?
Yeah. And how do you go from horror then to the special makeup effects? Because they're not the same thing, but then they're related.
Well, they're related because, again, it's deconstructing
the
horror.
Physical being, and then its transformation into death.
Yes. And then for me to analyze it, you know, when we did Day of the Dead, which was my first job with George Romero, we had a book. It was called The Medical Legal Investigation of Death. And it was a forensic handbook pathology encyclopedia. And each chapter was like blunt force trauma. And we would look at this book for reference when we were creating zombies. But they're real people. There was one that was like airplane crash victims, and all they showed was a ruler and a hunk of meat next to it, and you're like, that was a part of a body, you know. And you start realizing, and I think, again, for me, my medical background to begin with, and understanding the way the human body works, our effects with my company really sort of came from this understanding that I had of what the layers were, the realism of it. Like, if you took the skin off, there's skin, and then there's muscle, and then there's ligaments, and then there's blood vessels, and there's bone. So when we build dummies for movies, we recreate that. Okay, well, here's a resin bone, and then here's some silicone muscles, and then we put some tubing in there, and then we put a skin over top of it. So when you watch The Walking Dead and a zombie bites into an arm, your mind is seeing all those other levels of material that we put in there. And your brain oddly and miraculously puts it together and tells you, if there's blood shooting out, it must be real. They don't think about, oh, there's 5 guys to the side.
And even though I'm
blood.
not a doctor and I don't have a biology degree, I still know it's real somehow.
Your brain translates
Right.
the information.
Which
There's
keeps
a great
me in the
story.
moment of what you're trying to
without
create.
a doubt.
Right.
There's a great story. We were shooting season 1 of The Walking Dead. There was an actress named Emma Bell. And there's a scene where she gets bit in the arm by a zombie. It was like in the 4th episode, I think. And I was like, you know what? It's television. We don't have a lot of time. We really got to get it in one take. I'll be the zombie. So they put me in makeup, and we rehearsed it a bunch of times. So she had a prosthetic on, and then there was some fake muscle, and then there was a blood piece that was rigged to bleed. So we set it up. The director was there. And I said, okay, so in action, you open the door to the RV. I'm going to be there. I'm going to grab. As soon as you see blood, start screaming. And I said, I said to the director, if you don't say cut, I'm going to go in for another bite. We had rigged it so I could bite multiple times. Camera's rolling. Director says action. She walks out. She opens the RV. I come around the corner. I bite, tear off this big, giant chunk of meat, blood spraying. I don't hear anything. Dead silence. But I was like, well, I got to keep going. I go in and I bite again. I go in and I bite again. It's been like 10 seconds. And then all of a sudden, I heard the most blood-curdling shriek I had ever heard. So then we say, cut. There's blood pouring out. I look up at her, and she was like, I was in shock. She said, in my mind, I looked over. I saw you there. I knew you were coming. You bit me, and I saw blood shooting out of my arm, and I froze. I didn't know what to do. My brain all of a sudden was like, you're bleeding. Something's happening to you that shouldn't be happening. Even though there was a guy behind her pumping blood, I was there with my zombie makeup on. Her brain processed the entire situation differently. And when she did scream, it was horrific. But I remember thinking, like, while I was doing it, I'm like, why is she not screaming? And then when we were done and she was like, I was frozen in fear. I was so terrified.
And is that kind of dance with that amygdala?
Yeah.
Because again, so you're playing back and forth between this, some call it the lizard brain and then the monkey
Sure.
brain. And,
Sure.
and going back to those prehistoric days where we would react. And like you said, she knew. It was
but
fake.
it didn't matter.
It didn't
Her
matter.
brain overrode whatever her conscious mind was telling her. And the beauty of the way directors and the way writers are able to craft these things. You can tell when something strikes the nerve, like I think Spielberg basically became famous for his movies because he tapped into those primal archival fears. Jaws, it was being eaten alive. Poltergeist, it was the fear of the toy clown under the bed that comes to life. You tap into those primal fears, and you're tapping into something that, number one, is universally relatable. It doesn't matter what country you live in. It doesn't matter if you're male or female or whatever. There are the fear of the unknown, and I think that's when you're able to capture that in this perfect storm of horror or fantasy fiction or movies. Then you're right on.
I just watched the Spielberg doc, or at least the first part of
great.
it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Great.
I didn't realize what was going on behind the scenes on Jaws. I didn't know how stressful it was, how he was writing it every day. But I'm surprised that you find that film so fascinating because the effects aren't human.
Don't say that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
Or are they?
Well, listen, I can tell you the moment. We were standing in the lobby of the movie theater, and you guys have. I was, 70 for 12.
Okay.
You guys have front of house cards. We call them lobby cards. They're little 8x10 or 11x14 photos from the movie. Yeah. And I stood there and I looked at. There was one particular lobby card that had a guy in the shark cage with a shark going by, and the shark was massive. And my parents had gone to see the movie the night before. So they took us, 12-year-old, my brother was 11, and my mom, in 2 instances, covered my eyes because she thought it was too gruesome. When Quentin was getting eaten was one of them.
Right.
And there was another moment. But I went home, had nightmares, but I was fascinated with, how did they make the shark? How did they build the shark? It was probably something that scared me so much that I needed to know about it. And then about a week later, there was Time magazine had an article called Summer of the Shark, and it was a big painting of the shark on the cover. And they had pictures of the mechanical shark in the magazine. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, like that's a job. Like there's a job. There's a bunch of dudes smoking cigarettes, hook that tube over there. And I had to figure out how to build this shark. So aside from the movie, which I think I saw in the theater 11 or 12 times that summer and was terrified to go in the ocean, much like everybody else, I was fascinated with how they built it and how they did it. And it was just a culmination of like me honestly watching, like Lost in Space and Star Trek and Land of the Giants when I was a kid, younger. And then between Jaws and then Dawn of the Dead, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build things that would scare the crap out of people. I don't know why.
And it's true, you have plenty of Jaws memorabilia.
I do.
Supposedly gigabytes of digital pictures. They say Greg Nicotero is obsessed with recreating everything he loved as a kid on a 1-to-1 scale. Is that fair?
Yes, I have a full-size head of the shark. As a matter of fact, Joe Alves, who's the production designer, he was a production designer on Close Encounters and Escape from New York. And he lives 20 minutes from my studio in Los Angeles, so he comes to visit every once in a while. They're doing an exhibit at Catalina Island this spring of all of Joe's artwork from Jaws. And I have a good collection of some original blueprints and sketches. So Joe said, you gotta call Greg Nicotero. He's got some cool stuff. So lo and behold, Joe's writing a book about the making of Jaws. And he asked me to write the foreword. And everything that I've been talking to you about, it sort of all came out. Like I was remembering this moment and where do you even start that job? I mean, they had never done anything like that. And Spielberg, to his credit and also probably his dismay, insisted that they shoot it on location, not in a tank, because he wanted it to be real.
Out.
He wanted it to be real. If it wasn't real and he didn't believe it, he knew the audience would never believe it. Yeah. And then, of course, it's like the perfect storm of what could go wrong did go wrong. But I have ultimately really become fascinated with the movie. And the funniest thing, of course, is I'm friends with a lot of the people that worked on the movie. I worked with Spielberg the first time I met him. I had a script from Jaws in a little leather binding thing because I collected some scripts of some of my favorite movies. And I took it to set with me. And we were working on Amistad. And the makeup artist friend of mine who I was working with, when he saw me over there talking to Steven, and ran over and grabbed the book out of my bag and came over and went, hey, Steve, you should check out Greg's Jaws book. And he opened it and he started looking through and he went, oh, this is the rewrite that I did before we started shooting. Wow. And then my friend Bill was like, hey, would you sign it? Like, I didn't have to do any of the heavy lifting, thank God. And Steven signed it and he said, a way easier read than a shoot. And we talked about the movie that day on set. And it was one of those days that I went home, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. Everything about me was electrified, just having worked with him and having been inspired by him. And it was an amazing night. It was an amazing experience. And the funniest story about it was, the scene takes place in a storm, and the boat was built on this giant gimbal. So the boat's rocking back and forth, and it's at the moment where the slaves revolt on the ship, and they kill their captors. And at one shot, there was a sail, and Steven said, "Hey, go up there, and I want you to spray some blood. They're going to come up and they're going to stab through the sail and cut it, and I want you to shoot blood through it." I said, "Okay, great." So I have my little blood tank. I climb up the ladder and I'm on the boat. This is before we're rolling, so the boat's not shifting. And they tell me where I can hide so I won't be seen in the shot. And I duck down and I'm right behind this big giant sail. And I look behind me and there's a 3,000-gallon dump tank because, of course, it's raining in the scene. So they roll cameras and then the boat starts moving and then they turn the rain on. So then it starts raining. And then they say, and action. And all these actors come and they grab a guy and they throw him up against the sail, and the one guy cuts through the sail. And at the exact same moment, they trigger the 3,000-gallon dump tank. So I just got, like I was like the drowned rat in all the cartoons, you know. And I'm spraying, like I didn't care how much water was on me. I was gonna spray that blood like I was told. And they all cut. I climbed down off the ladder. And was like, oh my God, that shot was amazing, it looked great. And Steven turns and looks at me and I'm literally like, what, like the drowned. And he just looked at me and laughed. He's like, you all right? I'm like, I'm good. Dude, how did it look? I didn't care. I just wanted it to look cool. So then I got in the car and it was 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and I called my parents and I was like, I just worked with Steven Spielberg. And I could remember like it was yesterday. It was such a great experience and someone that inspired me so much to be able to be just a small part. And then we went on and worked on a Minority Report, a couple other movies together. So, you know, it's the opportunities that I've had. You know, I always look at my career and I figure I've come to these crossroads, and I've been fortunate that I've always taken the correct path. You know, there were a lot of instances when I could have worked on one movie versus another movie, and like working with Sam Raimi, I chose Sam Raimi over working on another film, and that was Evil Dead 2, and then kind of led me off into my career with Sam and the movies that I've done with him for so long.
Right. Talk to me about when you got the first call for The Walking Dead. What did you think, and did you have any idea it was going to grow to be such a global phenomenon?
Okay, so the Frank Darabont, who is one of the most brilliant filmmakers of our generation, also happens to be a very, very dear friend of mine. I consulted on Shawshank Redemption. He had called and said, hey, I need to age some people. We're shooting in a prison in Ohio. Can you recommend someone to do some aging? And it was for the lead actor. So then all of his movies since then, we had done the effects. Green Mile, The Mist, Majestic, all these other movies that he had done, we worked together on. And we were really, really good friends. So I directed second unit for him on a couple films, and he said, hey, I have the rights to The Walking Dead. Now, I was one of the people that saw the comic book in the comic book shop, the first issue, and grabbed it. I remember I was shooting a movie with Robert Rodriguez, and I grabbed 2 off the shelf, and I flipped through, and I was like, oh, the zombies look great. Like, I was looking at the zombies, of course. And I went back to the studio where I was shooting with Robert. I said, dude, you gotta check this out. It's like a zombie comic book. Who the hell ever heard of that? And then Frank later says, okay, I have the rights to do it as a TV show. And I knew Frank had always wanted to do something in the zombie genre because he was a big fan of Night of the Living Dead. We had even gone to dinner once. I had a script that I was interested in directing, and I wanted to see if he wanted to produce it with me. And it was a zombie story. And he had said, you know, the biggest problem with zombie material is, you know, you need an ensemble cast, and you really need more than just 2 hours to tell this story. He had been looking for something actively. So when he got the rights, and I remember reading the first script, which I loved, but of course, because I'd been sort of weaned on a very steady diet of zombie movies and zombie material, I was kind of like, yeah, but who's gonna watch it? Like, I know I would watch it, but will other people watch it? Are people gonna be enamored with the genre like I am? I failed to take one significant thing into account, which is Frank's ability to put together this amazing ensemble cast of characters that are 100% relatable. And that's what his signature is. You look at all of his movies, he puts these amazing actors together in this perfect ensemble piece. So Andy Lincoln, John Bernthal, Melissa McBride, Sarah Callies, Norman Reedus. When you watch the first season of that show, there's something that every single person can identify with. And when you are able to put yourself into another character's shoes, then the filmmakers have succeeded. And Frank excelled at creating memorable characters, whether despicable like Merle or not, they were fascinating. And Michael Rooker really helped, Oh my God, Jeffrey. Oh my God, I can't believe I just forgot his last name. Who played Dale?
Come back to it.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah. And did you?
Jeffrey DeMunn.
Okay.
You know, he really created something special. And you know, it's funny because the opening scene of the little girl in the gas station, I kind of said, Frank, they did this already. There's an opening little girl in the Dawn of the Dead remake. They've kind of done this. So I was sort of looking at it like, okay, if you take those two scenes, you could say, okay, we start with this little zombie girl, and in Walking Dead we start with little zombie girl. And I just remember really kind of pushing back at him a little about that, going, are you sure you want to open with this? Because, you know, it might be good to maybe not open with the little girl because people were going to compare. Well, I was wrong, of course. Not only did people not compare, but people didn't care. Because they didn't care because it wasn't about the opening scene. It wasn't about the little girl zombie. It was about Rick. It was about his struggle to find his family in this fantastic world. And that was what it was about. And
what is it about zombies? Zombies are a reflection of us. They show us our dark side. They show us our weird tendencies. And zombies have evolved since you originally.
Well, listen, I mean,
Romero,
before
right?
1968, zombies were Haitian voodoo only. There was the pop culture rules that we know as zombies were created by George Romero. They were written into a script. Shoot them in the head, you have to kill them. They come out of the ground and they bite you and you die from the bite and you become one of them. People just assume. It's not like literature. It's not like,
right.
You know, it's not Frankenstein. It's not, you know, Bram Stoker or Mary Shelley. This is stuff that was created within the last 50 years, within our lifetime. And I think, honestly, I will say Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead still is. Jaws and Dawn of the Dead kind of knock each other out as my favorite movie every once in a while. But the one thing that a lot of people don't think about is it wasn't until 1998, maybe 2000, when zombie games became first-person shooter games, or zombie movies, zombie material. So with Resident Evil, with House of the Dead, you were opening the zombie genre to a whole new world because you were able to put a plastic gun into somebody's hand and they were actually to shoot zombies themselves. That changed the landscape of zombie movies forever.
Interesting.
And a lot of people...
So gaming affects the film.
Especially in this instance, because gaming started and then it was Resident Evil and House of the Dead. And then they did a Resident Evil movie, and then they did 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle, great movie.
Yeah.
And then Shaun of the Dead, another great movie, one of my faves. So the zombie genre really kind of was reawakened into modern pop culture with video games. And then George Romero did Land of the Dead, and then all of a sudden, zombie material was much more mainstream than it had ever been. I mean, you know, let's face it, zombie material prior to video games was not mainstream.
Right.
And what The Walking Dead was able to do was able to put a genre that to that point was really relegated to people who were just hardcore fans in front of an entire new group of people.
And what makes you the guy they go to when it comes to special makeup and effects?
Because I love it.
I know you love it.
I love it.
And your
That's
passion
easy.
comes out on the screen. Again, like you said earlier, that's what great filmmaking is. Passion.
Well, you know, I do have a very unique pedigree because I feel like having grown up in Pittsburgh and having worked with George, you know, I always joke that there's something in the water there that you drink and then you're obsessed with zombies in Pittsburgh. But I think it's because those movies affected me so much as a young man that I'm constantly, number one, I feel beholden to the genre, and I'm constantly trying to reinvent the look of zombies. And on The Walking Dead, we've had 8 years to refine and develop the look. And I will tell you really honestly, one of the things that makes me the most proud is 99% of the zombie work on The Walking Dead is practical makeup effects. There's no CG involved with the walkers. It's all makeup. And when you're talking about a world where so much is done in computer and so much is done digitally, to really be able to embrace the practical art of special effects makeup, you know, to celebrate guys like Stan Winston and Rob Bottin and Rick Baker and Tom Savini, who was my boss, and make my art form much more readily available to a new group of young people. Now, it's affecting them the way it affected me. When I met my mentor for the first time, I was in, oh, you did these special effects for Dawn of the Dead. Oh, you blew that guy's head up and the girl got bit in the shoulder. And now I have kids coming up to me saying, I want to do what you do because I saw the work you did on The Walking Dead. So that's the greatest compliment that I can ever get, because I'm sort of completing this circle of where I got started and how I got started into it.